G'day, Shane Dowling here from the website kangaroocourtofaustralia.com. I'm with Sahar Kahili, former president of the Fusion Party Australia. And we're going to talk about Scott Morrison, former Australian Prime Minister, who's resigned from Parliament. I think he might have finished up yesterday, or maybe he finishes up today. But he did his valedictory speech yesterday. It would have been full of lies. I was going to watch it all, but it's almost 40-odd minutes, 50-odd minutes. So I thought I've got better things to do than watching that. We're going to cover some of his legacy. I think the number one legacy he's going to leave is that he encouraged more Australians to vote independent than any other former Prime Minister. That's what I think. That's why we've got so many teal independents now. And some of the issues that weren't mentioned yesterday by either Scott Morrison or current Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who thanked Scott Morrison for his time in Parliament, and also Peter Dutton thanked him as well. I think they should have raised up all his failures, is my personal opinion. Now, some of the failures I've jotted down is the Brittany Higgins rape cover-up, Hillsong. Scott Morrison and his wife stood on stage with Brian Houston, the head of Hillsong, while he was under investigation for covering up his father's sexual abuse of children. That was a scandal that, my viewpoint, should have brought down Scott Morrison by itself. Then you got the Home Affairs multi-billion-dollar fraud scandals, which are currently before the National Anti-Corruption Commission. And you got sports fraud. You got Angus Taylor ripping off $100 million to buy back water that didn't even exist. You got robo-debt, where people committed suicide. The Black Summer bushfires, where Scott Morrison forced people to shake his hand. Unbelievable, no shame. And the numerous portfolios Scott Morrison appointed himself to. Now, Sahar, you've got a number of issues you wanted to raise?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess some of the things that come to mind are the way he mentioned that women would be met with bullets in other countries. So backhanded compliment to democracy here, I guess. Also, just, this is post him being a PM. It was also redeeming to see and observe ScoMo in his interviews in the Royal Commission into robo-debt. Just what I experienced overall with ScoMo being PM is constantly feeling like we had to battle the cognitive dissonance that we experienced with all the lies that he would put out, just feeling very agitated, never having any trust in listening to anything that he said. So now that he's gone, that agitation has definitely dissipated with him. The thing that got me first interested into politics was observing the way that he acted with the bushfires in 2019. So I was living in Drummoyne in the inner west of Sydney, far away from the bushfires. But then we still experienced the debris, the smog, the pollution. I saw solid bits of soot coming through the air. And then we're like, okay, where's our PM, the guy who's in charge? And he's in Hawaii. And I remember that was the first time I started to pick up on what was going on in politics in a more serious way. And when he said that he was in a rush or he was going to hurry to get back, it took him days. And I thought, okay, this is not good. And so from there on, he had other things like just the failure with the women's agenda symbol, which congrats to the consulting team who put that together, because I thought that was a real funny middle finger to ScoMo and his team. The Humpty Doo thing, him just being the daggy dad, fan of the Sharkies or the Swans or whatever he was trying to make up. He was overall just a huge embarrassment, asking his wife for advice on how to have empathy about a woman that works for his party in Parliament getting allegedly raped, by imagining potentially his daughters getting raped, for him to understand the heaviness of that. It's just disappointing all round.
One of the things that concerned me, and I just mentioned it before, you've got all these issues in relation to Scott Morrison, and a lot of it won't come out for years. Hopefully some of it will come out in the near future with the National Anti-Corruption Commission, but a lot of it won't come out for years. But there's enough on the table now that Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton should have given an absolute hiding in Parliament yesterday instead of congratulating him when he did his valedictory speech. That in itself is part of the cover-up. They should have itemised his failures because there's so many of them. It's not like he was a reasonable Prime Minister that we should be proud of. He was a crook and a con man. He headed up, in fact, a crime syndicate is what the Liberal Party and National Party are, and some of the Labor Party too. And that was proven yesterday when they covered it up. It's like the mafia. The mafia might fight between each other, but they won't rat on each other. And that's what happened yesterday. And Anthony Albanese was a prime example of that. He should have raised all the issues that Scott Morrison failed at, instead of saying, talking about what a great job he did or congratulating him. I don't think he said what a great job he did, but he congratulated him on, some of his successes. Now, I'm going to publish an article tomorrow on Scott Morrison. The title is going to be Scott Morrison, the coin-operated Prime Minister Australia had to have. Now, I came up with the term coin-operated because someone wrote that in a comment on my website, that Scott Morrison's coin-operated. And that's in relation to Scott Morrison potentially being on the payroll of Israel. He's flown over there. He's toured Israel in relation to the Hamas, where they killed 1,200 people. He's shown up to a rally here and said the UN's anti-Semitic. So he's pumping out all the Israel lines, so it looks like he's on their payroll. And the person mentioned that he's coin operated. You put money in and he'll say anything about anything. And that's potentially an issue moving forward, because apparently he's going to go on the speaker's circuit. I thought he did have a couple of jobs lined up, but someone said yesterday, or it was mentioned in one of the reports, that he's gone on the speaker's circuit around global speaker circuit. Well, what do you think about that, him going on the global speaking circuit? Do you think he's coin operated? People will pay him any amount of money and he'll say anything?
For sure. I mean, okay, I was going to say, how did he even get vetted to become a candidate to be a leader of the Liberal Party when he failed at so many jobs beforehand? Tourism Australia, Tourism New Zealand. Besides that, he conned his way into the leader of the Liberal Party. And I would say, you could potentially say there is a conspiracy because he has no core integrity. He doesn't have anything that he stands for himself. So whoever puts that coin into his back, whether it's from fossil fuel industry or religious lobby groups, whoever, he'll speak it. And the thing is, I remember I was feeling quite nervous during the ScoMo-Albo, head-to-head election in 22, because I really wanted a change in government. And seeing the way that ScoMo and Albo had debated each other on Sky News for some reason, Albo didn't look like a strong speaker. He's a smaller man, whereas like ScoMo, he had no trouble just parading any type of nonsense. He was a strong speaker, but he spoke a lot of nonsense. And I feel he's just going on to continue to further all of his BS as a speaker. So yeah, I mean, people will hire him and pay him big bucks to just say a lot of BS, and I don't think we need any more BS in this world. There's enough rampant AI-backed misinformation happening online. So he's just the flesh form of an AI BS bot, really. So I don't wish him the best, really.
Probably the last issue to talk about is the fact that Scott Morrison will probably sell government secrets. I think he would. Now, there's meant to be government secrets or cabinet secrets in the book. Simon Benson of The Strain, another journalist, wrote a book and about Scott Morrison and his time in, I think, COVID or whatever it was. And he leaked cabinet secrets in that. So I wonder if he'd sell government secrets, and is that a concern for ASIO and the federal government now? I have no doubt he would. He's meant to be linked. He was meant to be getting a job with some defense business in the US. Whether that's fallen through or where it heads up or lands up, I'm not too sure. But the only reason he would have been employed for that would have been Pompey. Pompey, the American politician or American bureaucrat. He's meant to be involved with him somehow. I think he's a former head of the CIA. And it's no doubt in my mind that Scott Morrison would hand over government secrets, Australian government secrets, left, right, and centre. What do you think about that? Do you think he would, or?
Well, see, I guess it depends where his loyalty lies, and we don't know where it lies. It's whoever has the coin in his back. And I think if he did sell secrets, it'd be really curious to know how much. We would really like to know how much it would take for him to betray. And how much he would care to stab Dutton in the back, really, because if he does that, it really looks bad for Dutton and maybe for our benefit. we won't get Dutton winning the 2025 election. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not convinced ScoMo would be that slimy, but I'm open to be surprised.
Well, he was one of the people behind AUKUS. I think he would be that slimy because you mentioned it before. It depends where his loyalty lies. Well, we know that he doesn't have any loyalty. The only loyalty he has is to himself, not even his family, I don't think.
I wonder if ACES is onto it then. If we have a history and if Dutton can disclose there might be a conflict of interest, I don't know. I mean, like you'd hope that they're onto it.
But let's get back and let's just finish up with his legacy. I think is going to be his greatest legacy is the fact that he encouraged, not deliberately, obviously not deliberately, but he encouraged more Australians to vote independent for independent candidates than probably any other prime minister. And he encouraged that because so many people disliked him, and that's why we ended up with so many teal politicians in Parliament. I think the next election will probably get even more because his legacy isn't finished with yet. There's still a lot of people there who are going to realise they might want to vote Labor, but they don't want to vote Liberal or National again because they don't want to end up with another Scott Morrison. So I think there'll probably be more teal candidates. Well, not necessarily teal, they can be other independents. The teal is just the name that's been given to them because they are linked to some degree, but not in a massive way. What do you think about that? Do you think that'll be his legacy? I think it will be his biggest legacy.
I think
myself.
that's yeah. Well, the biggest positive legacy that it's encouraged a lot more participation in government. I mean, I think a lot more engagement from the public because one thing at least I observed with the 22 election is a lot more people were engaged ever since the lockdown happened and the mismanagement of the pandemic. So that really woke people up to, how much of an impact or how much control government can have on our everyday experience of life in this country. Funny you say the teal candidates because I feel there is a movement going away from the teal color. I noticed Zoe Daniel recently changed her social media colors from teal to Australian Democrat colors, so the gold and green. So who knows what the movement's happening? And there are also purple candidates too for, I guess, progressive, techno-progressive type of candidates. The legacy of ScoMo, the positive outcome of having ScoMo is it really gave us the fire under our butts to just get engaged and realize, if this is what government is capable of, or if the government has responsibilities to make sure that our quality of life is going to be good, then let's become more aware and choose better politicians to govern.
Yep. So we'll finish up there. I'll publish an article tomorrow. Like I said, Scott Morrison, the coin-operated Prime Minister Australia had to have. And I say we had to have it because sometimes you need to really bottom out to realise what the true problems are. And I think I should extend the legacy part from him encouraging more Australians to vote independence, but also destroying the Liberal Party. I don't think they'll ever recover from him myself, not fully. I don't think Peter Dutton's got any chance of ever becoming Prime Minister. And I think after him, they'll probably slide back further. Was there anything you wanted to add, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I'd add that I think Albo really does owe his victory to ScoMo's failure. And that's why the 2025 election, I'm just as nervous and, keen to see what happens there because we can't depend on the Liberal Party failing again to win a Labor government. Who knows what will happen? Labor minority government, I think would be ideal for me.
Well, I think if I'm right, and his legacy is encouraging more Australians to vote independence, and I think that potentially follows through to the next election. If I'm right there, well, I think we'll have a Labor Party minority government, and I think that'd be best because one example of that is if we had a Labor Party minority government, we would have a genuine National Anti-Corruption Commission, one with open and public hearings, not the toothless tiger we've ended up with, which Anthony Albanese, along with Peter Dutton, managed to sneak that through. But we'll finish up there. And just one last thing, I actually published a book a couple of years ago, The Judiciary Letter, Part 2, Australia's Corrupt Prime Ministers. Scott Morrison's in that. He gets a fair workout in that. So if people want to buy that book, otherwise visit my website tomorrow, Kangaroo Court of Australia, and you'll read that article and there'll be further links in that. So thank you for your time, Sarah.
Cool. Thank you. Can't wait to read it.
And just one
Thanks,
last
Shane.
thing. Last time you were on, this is your second podcast. Someone put in the comment sections that you're the president of Fusion Party Australia. Well, actually, the former president, so they're wrong there. We spoke about it before the podcast, and I decided not to even mention it because I thought it was such a minor issue. And the reason I thought it was such a minor issue because I'm comparing that to something like the ABC radio announcer having Angus Taylor's wife on there and interviewing her without declaring that she's actually Angus Taylor's wife, which is a huge issue. So I was comparing that to that, and I thought, oh, well, it's just a minor issue. You're a former president of a minor party. Really doesn't matter. And as you said, the last issue we spoke about wasn't a political issue. This obviously is a political issue, so we declared it. I thought I'd just put that on the record while we got you there. Other than that,
Thank you.
thank you for
Yeah.
your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.